John chapter 4, the Gospel of John chapter 4, we'll start right at verse 1. The Pharisees, the church leaders of the day, heard that Jesus was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John the Baptist, although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. So when the Lord learned of this, when he learned that the Pharisees were hearing this, he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Now we had to go through Samaria. So let's pause for a moment because we need to get the map in our minds. Southern part of Israel is Judea. Northern part of Israel is Galilee, and in between is Samaria. So you would think that this is not much of a statement when it says, now he had to go through Samaria, because you would think that leaving from the south, getting to the north, you would simply have to go right through the middle, which is Samaria. But you need to realize that really this is not the case. In fact, Jews went around Samaria. They didn't want to have anything to do with Samaria. They didn't want to have anything to do with Samaritans. So when they had to go from south to north or from north to south, they went out of their way to go around Samaria. It would take them extra time. It would be extra steps, extra work to do that. But that is what they did. And they did that on purpose because they wanted nothing to do with them. They despised them. I really think we could use the word hated them. And we need to know how that came about. And to know that, you've got to go back almost 1,000 years, hundreds and hundreds of years to the time of the kings. So Saul was the first king of Israel. David took over. He was the second king of Israel. David had one of his sons was Solomon. Solomon took over when David died. And when Solomon took over, God had made a promise to Solomon. If you will keep my commands, if you will keep my decrees, if you will walk in my ways, I will not tear the kingdom away from your family. It will remain a part of your family forever as long as you do that. Was Solomon able to do that? No. He was drawn away by the many wives that he had taken to himself. They had lots of idols and they led him astray. And because of that, the kingdom was told it was going to be torn, not from him, but from his son. So when Solomon died, Rehoboam took over. Well, Rehoboam thought that he was taking over the whole kingdom, but what he found out very quickly was that was not going to happen. And Rehoboam, Solomon's son, only took over the northern part, which was just 2 tribes that he was king over, Judah and Benjamin. The other 10 tribes were under other kings. And if you know anything about the history of that time period, sin just reigned. Idolatry reigned supreme. One king after another after another. And really, you kind of see that it progressed worse and worse and worse and worse from one king to the next. So what does the Lord do? He sends them into exile. The Babylonians come in, overtake Israel, and Israel is dragged off into exile. And of course, it's during the exile that the story of the Daniel and the lions in, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the story of Esther, all that happens during the exile. Okay, so when that happens, when Israel is when the people are basically drug out of their own homes, their own towns, and Jerusalem is destroyed, the walls of the temple, all that is destroyed, there is a remnant left behind. The Assyrians come in, they kind of take over the land, and they begin to integrate with the remnant. And so as they intermarry and begin to produce offspring, that offspring essentially in the physical realm are half-breeds. They're half Jews but half Assyrians. And that is where the Samaritans show up. That's who the Samaritans are. Now, that's the physical realm, but you need to understand that in the spiritual realm, they're half-breeds as well, because they begin to do or continue to do some of the Jewish rituals, some of the sacrifices, some of the rites and rituals, but only some of them, really only about half of them. So physically they're half-breeds, spiritually they're half-breeds. Now you get to the time of Nehemiah, still during the exile, he feels a call of the Lord to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple walls. So he does that. The king gives his permission. By the way, that king happens to be Esther's husband. It's the same time period. Esther's husband sends Nehemiah out to rebuild the walls, and he organizes the crew to do that, and they're on the walls working. And Sanballat and other guys are there, and they're mocking them. And these are the Samaritans mocking Nehemiah and the workers as they're rebuilding the walls. And then history happens between then and the time of Jesus. And during that history, it's interesting because when kings or when armies would come in and they were for the Jews, the Samaritans were Jews. But when kings and armies came in and they were against the Jews, or they despised the Jews, guess what? Samaritans conveniently were not Jews. They were fair weather Jews. When it was good to be a Jew because it would save your life, they were Jews. But when it was bad to be a Jew because you would end up dead, by the way, we're not Jews. We're Samaritans. So by the time of Jesus, when you have 1,000 years of this kind of history, there is generation after generation after generation of hatred that is passed down. And you are taught, you are learned very quickly that you're not to interact with them. You're not to talk with them. In fact, you don't even go into Samaria. We're going to walk around. We need to get to Galilee. We're in Judea. Okay, well, it's going to take extra time because we got to go around Samaria. So then you see this in verse 4. Now, Jesus had to go through Samaria. When you have that history in mind and you see that statement, you realize divine appointment is coming. He did not have to go through Samaria. In fact, he had to because there was a plan. So, he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. By the way, it's also important to know about this, that if you go and you study in Genesis, Jacob and Joseph, you will find nowhere that Jacob buys a well and gives it to his son Joseph. You will find in chapter 33 that Jacob bought land in the area of Shechem and most likely dug that well there and handed it off to his son Joseph. Just because it's not in the Bible doesn't mean it didn't happen, okay? But I want you to know, if you went back to research to find that story when Jacob handed off the well to Joseph, you will not find it. It's not in there, okay? But obviously, it did happen because it is well understood in this day and age that this well was dug by Jacob and handed to his son Joseph. Verse 6, Jacob's well was there. And Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about the 6th hour. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? How in the world can you even dialogue with me? Why are you speaking to me? In fact, why are you here? Shouldn't you be going around?" You see, Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Well, Jesus' response was this: if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and this well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his flocks and his herds?" Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." So the woman said, "Sir, yes, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and I won't have to keep coming out here to this well to draw water." Now, obviously, she's not tracking with Jesus, okay? She's not tracking. All she's seeing right now is that he's offering her some water from somewhere, that she's never going to be thirsty again, doesn't have to do all the work to get out to the well, draw water, take it back. Yes, I love that. Bring it on, Jesus. And this is what he does. And you have to know, You've got to know that when she is starting this dialogue with Jesus, that there is something deep down inside that is burning. I mean, I'm absolutely convinced that when you come face to face with the living God of all the universe, you're going to burn inside. You are going to, when you're hearing His voice, I mean, you're feeling it.